This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Monger Brewing. Visit Monger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yo, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And last week we promised you a wooden robot. Well, unfortunately, they had to reschedule. So we'll have them on a little bit later. But this week we decided to talk about stouts for the summer.
What?
Yes, I am Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt, who's going to tell us a little more about the show and our guest this week.
Indeed. So, Tim, I can't think of anything I would like more than a thick, refreshing stout in the heat of summer. So nice. Sitting there by the pool with just that molasses of a stout. Wonderful. So joining us today, we have Jason Pellett, the brewmaster for Orpheus Brewing, a man that is nearly as famous for brewing thick stouts as he is for eating plums. Jason, thank you for joining us.
A pleasure, always.
Yes. So, stouts. We're talking a lot
for
about
the summer,
stouts.
man.
Yeah.
We're just going to go all out with it and just have a good time. We are not going to let Mother Nature tell us when to drink our stouts, Brian.
Stouts all year long.
Yes, all year. And we actually had some stouts this weekend.
We
just
did,
recently
yeah.
while we were out in the scorching Georgia heat. We did have some stouts then. It was quite nice, actually, at Mr. Pellett's Brewery. Anniversary party, 5 years, Jason. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And there were some stouts released there, so that was a good time.
Just a few, like, I don't
Just
know,
a
20
few.
maybe?
They weren't all released this weekend.
Okay.
They just were all available.
All available.
Okay.
I think we only released like 6 new ones.
Oh, only
maybe.
6.
6 or
Just
7.
six.
No. It was more like 14.
Oh,
Okay.
I was going to say
Now, see
6. No, not even an event, really, but 14. Now you got my attention.
Right. And you had nearly 40 beers on tap for your anniversary, right?
40 beers on tap.
And so a third of those were stout variations, right?
It was, new, yeah.
Okay.
We had, Stout Day was 20 stouts.
Crazy. A whole day for stouts.
So you have a series called Stouts All the Way Down. It's up to 12 now, or is it 14?
We took it from 5 to 12 this past weekend.
Now, wasn't there one in there missing? Did I see on the beer list like it was 5 to 10 and then 11 was disappeared and then 12 was there? Or
No, it
they
was
were all there?
On Stout Day, we had 1 through 12 on tap. The other day, it was actually 9 and 12 that were Stout Day only. So I actually brought some 11 today.
All right. Good deal. Actually, yeah, I think I may have had 11.
I think that's the Neapolitan one, right? Did we discuss that? 11's the strawberry
it's strawberry,
chocolate?
yeah.
But we did other crazy stuff this weekend, Brian, and I got to go watch you get just absolutely destroyed in Whirly Ball.
Yes. So went to a friend's birthday event, and we went out and played Whirly Ball, which is basically bumper cars plus wickets and balls.
Like highlight and basketball and soccer and bumper cars.
Yeah, really great. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I just forgot to put my little seatbelt thing on at the last segment of it, and my shins took just an awful beating. I could barely walk at the end of it. I loved it, though. I can't believe how much fun that is for as dumb as it looks.
It's a perfect drinking sport.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
something. Have you ever Whirly Balled, Jason?
I just now heard of it, and now I'm wondering how to do it.
See?
Where to go.
I know there's a few courts, I guess they call them. I don't know. But
Field?
around the area, there's one in Roswell.
Yes.
Just Roswell, Atlanta
And these
metro
are like
area.
motorized go-karts.
These are.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Electrical floor, you see sparks flying off every now and then, and people run.
I've been wondering what to do with my life after this 5th anniversary, and I think I found it.
Competitive professional Whirly Ball.
We always are here to provide solutions to life's problems, and that's what we're for. Speaking of competitive, though, one of the guys that was working at this Whirly Ball place said they have like the finals each year in a certain place, and they were in Atlanta this year. And I said, were there any guys that take it like too serious? He's like, oh gosh, yes. Guys come in with full like padded shins and all this stuff.
There's no way there's not some dodgeball people.
Well, that's what I said.
Sure.
Any sport or hobby has got people that go too far with it. The people that get stereotyped as the rest of it.
Could you imagine that becoming dodgeball, like bumper cars plus dodgeball? That's a pretty intriguing concept too.
But we also popped into Gate City Brewing. Check that out. I think you went over to Varian and had a couple of brews.
I did. I had a little precursor Overslept, I believe is the name of the stout there. It was delightful and just hung out there for a little bit. It was, I think it was Memorial Day, wasn't it? Yeah. Just
It was.
accidentally shut it down, Tim. I didn't mean to be there so long, but I got comfortable at the bar, and before I knew it, it's like, oh, by the way, we're closing. You need to get out of here. Oh yeah, okay. Let me go home now.
Is that the first time you've been thrown out of a bar at closing time?
We'll say yes, because nobody can prove otherwise, I don't think.
You know, I was going to say, you said you went there for a couple. I was like, I've never been to Variant for just a couple beers.
Right.
Well, to be
Neither
fair,
has Brian. So, yeah.
I guess I really don't need to follow up on that too much. Yeah,
Right.
it's just I like what they have there. It's fun, and yeah, it's just once you get a spot there at the bar, it's
Easy to hang out and
Easy
just
to
keep
hang
on
out.
keeping on, right?
yes. You know, Tim, I think we should talk about the beers of the week at this point.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, this may come as a total surprise to you, but we have quite a selection of stouts this week. We do. So we did our pre-gaming with one, Brian, just starting with a good Russian Imperial Stout from Georgia's past, a historical Georgia beer, not too far back in the past history, but Dempsey's Your Black Heart, which if you're a Georgia beer fan, you've been around, you probably remember this. Dempsey's went out of business maybe a few years ago. Randy Dempsey was the owner, but this is a very fine Russian Imperial Stout. And it's one that I'm sad is not available anymore because with so many things with adjuncts and people putting crazy stuff in their stouts like black coconut and that, you just can't keep up. You just getting a good basic stout.
Just a good basic stout.
It's not easy to find. So this is one of those. So we also have, Jason, as you mentioned, you've got some stouts for us here. We've got number 11 from stouts all the way down, the Neapolitan one. What else is Orpheus bringing to the party today?
I brought an Airport 10s, which is one of our anniversary beers. So that was bourbon barrel aged with macadamia nuts and vanilla beans, and then the Dark Everlasting with the black coconut, which is just coconut. It was white coconuts that we cooked for 5 weeks. Made
5
them into
weeks.
black coconuts.
Crazy.
And vanilla
Pure
beans.
madness.
And some of that Neapolitan and like kind of a Mexican inspired.
Oh, very cool. Sounds good. We also have Great Divide Yeti, Brian. We have Southern Tier Nitro S'mores. You brought a Wrecking Bar Brewpub Mexican Siberius Maximus, another Atlanta favorite. A Founders KBS Mexican Cake Westbrook Evil Twin Biscotti collaboration thing, and one from our good friends right here at Monger Brewing. We have Goodbye Toby, which is a chocolate peanut butter milk stout and is really nice paired with carrot cake Oreos.
Yes, it is. They go
It is,
together
Brian.
nicely.
So that's it. That's what we've got to drink in this hour. So we should be okay, I think. So
I think we got it covered.
yeah, absolutely. So Brian, what's happening in this week's news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so we have some more controversy this week, but what week do we not have some more
Always.
controversy? A Seattle brewery has apologized for a pair of Crips and Bloods themed beers. So the brewery is Mirage Beer out of Seattle. They announced on social media that they would be releasing 2 beers. I believe they were both New England IPAs or hazy IPAs, single and double perhaps. One called Snitch Blood and the other one called Where You From. And the cans were decorated with red and blue bandana designs that are worn by the rival gangs. So this went over about as well as you would expect it would in the online beer world. People were expressing their outrage at the brewery, trying to appropriate culture and profit from gang violence and just inner city troubles and whatnot, that sort of thing. So, but the brewery's owner got out ahead of it, surprisingly, and admitted it was a really dumb idea, really apologized, and has since deleted the social media posts, and apparently plans to release the beers and have all the profits from the proceeds from those beers, under different names, of course, go to some charity.
Slowing down the roll of the internet anger machine is not easy to do.
Oh, it really isn't.
If the internet gets upset at you about something, it's pretty much over with most of the time. So it sounds like he did it the right way. He's like, you know what? That was a horrible idea. Let me do something good with this.
Seeing people lay down the pitchforks like they seem to be doing in the comments, I'm surprised because usually this is a burn it to the ground situation, and
Crazy stuff.
people smell the blood and they're just going for it. So
Good stuff. Well, Brian, we talked too much about beer this week. That's all the time that we've got for the news right now. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show, and we will be back in just a moment to talk with Jason Pellett about stouts.
Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at
ResTech.net.
That's res-tek.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
It's Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Cannonball coming.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you miss an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. Now back to some hot stout talk with Jason Pellett from Orpheus Brewing.
Hot stout talk.
Yes.
Hot weather, cold stouts. Cellar temperature stouts, right, Jason?
Do they ever really get cold if they boiled for 30 hours?
I don't think they ever do. No.
There's always
the
some
boil
residual heat.
That's how you get those thick stouts. THICC.
That's right.
That's it. So, you know what? Let's start with that. We're going to just go totally crazy. For one, we opened a beer that we didn't mention in our featured beers. We jumped around to Firestone Marker 22, which is delicious. Brian, you said you picked this up on a trip to Asheville, right?
I did, yes.
So this is extremely nice. Jason, you talk about the 30-hour boil, which is these big, thick, the pastry stouts that we'll talk about a little bit more. But why in the world would you boil a stout for that darn long? And do you have to stay there? I guess someone does,
okay,
right?
So, no, actually, that's the best part. So I was actually, years ago as a home brewer, was reading an interview with Alan Sprintz of Hair of the Dog, talking about brewing Adam, which is huge inspiration for my stouts. It's not a stout, but like a dark barley wine, Adam beer,
An Adam
Hardy
beer, right?
Old World Ale, it says on the label. And he talked about, one of his favorite things about that beer is 4-hour boil, gets to take a nap. I was like, long boil. So in my first big stout I made as a home brewer, the 12th Labor, I was like, I'll do a long boil on this. My wife didn't love that, but I think that first one was probably 4 or 6 hours, something like that.
So nothing like you can do on a commercial scale, because I was going to say on a homebrew system, a long boil, you get down to where all you've got left is a bottle if you do a 30-hour boil, right?
Yeah, it's, even in the brewery, like if we go, our longest boils are more like 45 hours. We'll have to come in like on the second day and top off with a little bit of water so it can boil another day.
When I was drinking the stouts this weekend at your event, I noticed that when you were drinking them, if you would swirl the glass, it would paint the glass.
Oh, yeah.
And it wouldn't even really drip down. I mean, it painted the glass. Even after I drank all the beer, there was still a stouty haze.
It
to the
takes
glass.
about 3 or 4 rinses with water to make it look like
holding
there's
on
not
there.
a stout in there. Yeah, I mean, the finishing gravities on these beers are like range from about 15 to 19 Plato. So like in homebrew talk, that's around like 1.07-ish
Okay.
finishing gravity.
Now, I
So,
think we have an
very
idea, Jason, but what is the benefit of these super long boils? What all are you trying to get out of the process by doing that?
A couple main things. One is just the, a lot of breweries doing these thick stouts are just throwing a whole bunch of dried malt extract into the beers just to boost the gravity. But we get the gravity boost from just boiling down. We fill our kettle all the way up to about 31 barrels and boil down to about 16 barrels. So we're roughly doubling the strength of our wort with the boil, and also just developing a whole lot of color or lack of it's blackness.
The blackness.
Yeah. Is there an optimal time for boiling? And like, how long is too long at a certain point? Or is there too long?
I don't know. We haven't explored those outer ranges.
We've got an experiment then. We've got to see how long is too long.
We've stunned yeast with this stuff before. So it's
Yeast,
tough.
I
But,
know.
I've never but those ones that go like 40 plus hours, the wort tastes awesome because it develops so much rich melanoidin character and molasses and fudge and everything.
Well, they do have the whole Solera barrel concept, maybe the Solera boil concept, where you're taking some out, but you're always putting more wort back in. So you've got a continuous boil, a beer that never stops boiling.
That is innovation right there.
See?
And
maybe you
I
could
like that.
do your wort and boil it down and just release the wort as a non-alcohol beer because that's moving along now.
That would actually probably be pretty stable and delicious. I mean, you could, man, I drink not large glasses because it's very highly caloric.
I was going to say, non-alcoholic beer, calories per 12 ounce, 600.
Like our longest boils end up around 45 Plato, which is, what is that? Like specific gravity, like 1.19 or higher, something like that. So very thick and sweet.
I really wish that when we were homebrewing, we'd gotten more into the conversion between Plato and the, I don't even remember what the other one's called.
Specific gravity.
Yeah, specific gravity. I'm used to those numbers. I hear the Plato, and I always like, how does that work again? I don't know. And then professional brewers, I'm like, how do you guys do it again? We do Plato.
The Plato just makes it in some ways easier because the numbers are smaller.
Okay.
It's like this beer finishes at 1 Plato.
Yeah, you don't have to
Instead of
remember
1.004.
1.12568.
Sure,
right,
sure. That does make a lot of sense.
Well, I like the hashtag Boil Boys stouts. I'm a fan of those. So
Hashtag Boil Boys. You had a different hashtag, Boil Longer,
Boil
right?
people.
Boil
People.
people. Oh, I didn't see that
All-inclusive.
one. Boil people.
Trying to be
All
inclusive
inclusive.
here. Still boiling. Actually, Orpheus, after debating the Boil Boys, Boil People, we went with Still Boiling.
Still boiling.
Still boiling.
I thought I saw Boil Longer, hashtag Boil Longer on one of the screens this weekend, which I'm
Maybe.
I'm down with that too.
It could have things happen that I don't know, or they could be things that I did, and then a day later I don't remember doing.
If you're
Too many
drinking
plums,
stouts.
right?
Too many
Say,
plums.
too many plums.
I think have if you eat the kernels, it's cyanide.
See? Yeah.
So
Euphoric experience. The purple fairy.
Possibly deadly.
the purple fairy.
Yes, right. Well, I tell you what, let's back this party up a little bit. Talking about stouts, we like drinking them all year. Jason, we always enjoy your anniversary party coming out. There's always stouts there. It's always hot. Interestingly, even though I think the temperatures were higher this year over Memorial Day weekend, I think it was hotter last year, or felt hotter,
It
I
felt
should
hotter.
say.
It was
Yeah.
it rained last year.
Yeah, so steamy. But we have a good time with that. We're not going to let the season and the temperatures tell us when to enjoy our
Mother
stouts.
Nature will not
but
tell me how to live my
that's
life.
right. No, it's going to be a party. But, there's some people that may avoid them. However, you can start. There are stouts out there that are a little more conducive to a 14% Boil People stout. And, some of the varieties you can get, if you want to start with something like, you got your good old dry Irish stout, popular in St. Patrick's Day. Have you ever done one of those?
No, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, that doesn't seem like maybe your kind of stout.
We brewed it. I actually originally got into stouts through Guinness. So that was my life for a while. And then, cream stouts. Brewed a cream stout last year that I drank a lot of.
Good stuff. Yeah. So Guinness, as you mentioned, the most well known of the dry Irish stouts. A dry Irish stout's going to be dry and roasty. You're going to have lower ABV, 4 to 5%. You'll see a lot of people that can sit around and that's their go-to beer. A lot of people think a stout means heavy, but a Guinness is a pretty light beer, and calorie-wise is more calorie-friendly than some of these IPAs or double IPAs that people drink. So moving on from that, there's the Foreign Extra Stout, or sometimes known as the Foreign Export Stout. It is similar to a dry Irish stout, but with a little more hops and a higher ABV, clocking in around 6 to 8% on that one. Something I found really interesting that I did not know until I was doing my stout research, Brian. You got to research your stouts.
Yes, you do.
Historical Versions World War II had the same starting gravity as the domestic stout or the dry Irish stouts, but had a long secondary maturation with Brett.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So interesting stuff there. Moving on, tropical stouts is originally was a subset of the foreign extra stout, popular in the Caribbean, Africa. It differs from the foreign export stout, and it often uses a lager yeast, which is something I didn't know. I'm very minorly familiar with the tropical stout, and here locally, Gate City did one.
Yes, that's right.
And it was really nice. Fuller bodied, smoother roast character, fruitier, sweeter, and a lower hop flavor. And I do remember that one being kind of a fruity, sweet, really nice stout. It's a pretty enjoyable style, but
It's
you don't
pretty
see them
nice,
much.
yeah.
Not very many people do those.
Yeah, they had that early on, I think, when they just after they had started. You said something about a cream stout, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's a cream stout?
A milk stout.
It's just basically a milk stout.
Just a lactose stout, yeah.
Okay.
You know, I was thinking that made me remember that with your love of plums, I went searching through Untapped for plums in the stout categories.
Southern Tier done one.
I was surprised that you hadn't done one. Yes, I think Southern Tier
Plum
has
stout.
done one.
Guys, we're going to have to take a quick break here. If you want to find out what we're talking about with Jason and Plums, check out our Instagram account at Beer Guys Radio, and all will be answered there. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show, and we'll be back in just a moment to talk more stouts.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery, set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
You passed out cigarettes for a smoke-a-thon on Earth Day. You installed speed bumps on the handicapped ramps. And most recently, you dumped 100 pounds of meat on a peaceful vegan protest.
Oh, come on. That was way more than 100 pounds.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, KTEL 1490 AM and 99.7 FM in Walla Walla, Washington. Catch Beer Guys Radio on KTEL every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific. Now let's get back to the Stouts of Summer.
The Stouts of Summer. Now, I very rudely had to interrupt the conversation.
Yes.
Because of the last break, so I do apologize for that. So, Brian, I'm going to send this back to you. You were just asking Jason about why have you never done a stout with plums as an adjunct? Because you are known to have eaten more plums than a lot of people,
Most
right?
people. Than most people.
Most people.
Okay.
We use a Belgian yeast for our stouts, which, we ferment actually really relatively cold, like 61 degrees. So we don't pull out a lot of that Belgian characteristic ester character, but we do get like dark fruit character. And so I get that, dried fig, dried dates character already. So no need to add plums.
So it'd be excessive. You'd be overdoing it.
It would be that would be absurd.
You're just going too far.
Why would we go absurd with our stouts?
That's right. So I'm curious. You have eaten more plums than most people. What is your metric? At some point, I have a feeling like you must have a chart or some sort of a metric that you're tracking. Like in a month, how many plums do you eat?
Oh man, it depends on the month. Like how cheap are they? Are they in season?
Let's say in season.
In season, a lot more. I don't know. I really just, people I talk to are like, I haven't eaten a plum in a while. I'm like, they're in season. You should eat plums.
That's a good point. I haven't
He's
eaten a plum
just saying
in
that
ages.
randomly to people out there.
Because nobody can
Eat the
disprove
plums.
it.
It's a conversation starter.
It is.
When was the last plum you ate?
It's a weird flex.
Was it black? Was it
but
red?
Okay.
Weird flex. It's okay.
It's a good thing I'm already good thing I'm already married. 'Cause
That's right. Yes.
not very effective pickup.
That sounds like a phrase that would have came out. I bet there was alcohol involved when that phrase was uttered. Would I be correct there?
Okay, so when I originally said I've eaten more plums than most people, I was actually giving staff training to all of our bartenders for last year's anniversary for talking about the beer Atalanta Slays the Beast, which is like hyper-fruited, wild barrel-aged version of our flagship Atalanta. And I guess I said I've eaten more plums than most people. I didn't give it much thought. And then the next day I show up and one of the bartenders hands me a shirt that says I've eaten more plums than most people.
Jason didn't think about it. Everybody else is like,
Everybody else is
okay.
like,
That's good stuff, man. Good brewery stories.
Indeed. You know, I think we should talk about, we've opened a couple of beers since we last discussed opening beers.
One of Atlanta's favorites. Brian, you brought us a bottle of the Wrecking Bar Mexican Siberius Maximus.
Indeed.
Which we opened, which is fantastic. Nice spice in that. And then we decided to move on to Jason, one of your stouts, with a similar flavor additions, right?
It's Mexican inspired. And actually, I wanted to brew this because we did a ghost pepper stout that I really loved, and so I wanted to come back to the ghost peppers. And but I had actually recently had the Mexican Siberius and was really a fan of the cinnamon character, and I'm normally not a cinnamon fan. So I was like, we could do a Mexican inspired and actually like go for similar cinnamon character as the Mexican Siberius.
Right.
It's more subtle. But that was actually the beer that made me think, cinnamon can actually be a thing that I like.
It's similar cinnamon, but slightly subtle.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You know, now that we've discussed the whole plum thing and why there's no plums.
I do want to throw, though, this is Stouts All the Way Down.
Yes.
Volume 8 is the beer that we're talking
the
about
Ocho.
right now from Orpheus. The Ocho.
The Ocho, as two people have now called it.
There we go.
That's right. Exactly,
it's official.
two people. And now that we've gone over the plum situation, the usage of the Belgian yeast, and I get the dark fruit character in there. Now I'm kind of noticing it. I'm like, I don't know if I didn't notice it before. I think maybe with a lot of big beers, a big heavy stouts, there is kind of a fig frequently in there from the malt sweetness, but there's a lot of it in this one.
You're also tasting it from the the ghost peppers that we roasted. There's some fruity character there.
Really? Okay. Mm-hmm. I would always think of ghost peppers and anything like habanero and beyond as adding more heat than flavor. But I guess if you roast them, maybe a little bit more flavor.
We actually did last year. We did a habanero one, and I smoked them, dried them out in my smoker, and it was even very, very low usage. But they contributed a whole lot of flavor. For that, it was more citrusy. But the ghost peppers, it's more of a dark fruit and chocolate.
That's really interesting. I wouldn't have expected that from ghost pepper.
Think about drinking jalapeno stout or beers, just jalapeno beers in general. And we did a saison one time with just green jalapeno. Didn't roast it, anything like that. Just put it in there. But think about Don Jalapeno.
Oh, yeah.
That we've had. And that uses a blend of roasted and green. And you can really tell the difference. It's substantial change in flavor when you roast a pepper.
Sure. Definitely.
And like if you put roasted red peppers, I know they put them on subs. A lot of places will be using them on subs. They are a lot sweeter, than non-roasted peppers. The ghost peppers in this, Jason, did you use seeds and veins and all in that?
Yeah, we used them whole. We have a local farmer who just comes by the brewery pretty regularly, drops off peppers more than we can ever use, and he drops off honey, and he just loves beer, so. He's
Can't
like,
argue with
use
that.
use this. And finally, we trialed his peppers. We trialed 30 different chilies over the course of, you can't do that in a day. So this is over the course of 2 weeks, 3 different dosing levels of every single chili. And ghost pepper was the one where wow, that actually, the heat is clean. It adds chocolate. It was the real surprise.
Someone told me to try this at the anniversary party, and I passed. Because they said ghost pepper in it. And I said, no, I just knew it would be too hot for me, but it's not. I really expected, because I'm a lightweight when it comes to spice. I like my chicken wings mild to medium. I'm not going for the make your eyes water and make you cry. So That is not as hot as I expected it to be.
I mean, my background with peppers is more culinary than just throwing stuff in beer, and really obsessed with making Thai curries. So the Thai treatment of chilies, soaking, roasting, you pull out some of the harshest heat character, and you can work with more flavor. And so that's what we do with this. We do sometimes I'll do that soaking, roasting step 2 or 3 times, just so we can we still get heat, but we can use more peppers and get flavor from them. And, or else we could just add just heat, pure heat.
Capsaicin. Capsaicin.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that.
Have you ever put a lot of effort into something for a beer, and at the end you're like, that wasn't worth it?
Probably. We dump a lot of beer, especially barrel-aged stuff, but it's not like whole lots that we'll dump sometimes. But, a lot of times it's, we're getting higher percentage of good barrels from our method traditional, like spontaneous cool ship stuff. But, the earlier barrels, it's really high dump rate. I wouldn't say it's not worth it, but it's definitely not.
You learn from it, so there was value, right?
Oh, yeah, you learn from everything. So, don't look back. That's what we say at Orpheus.
Don't look back. Yeah. You can't. We learned with our homebrew that sometimes all the members of the homebrew club brew 5 gallons of beer and you put it into a barrel, and then 6 months later you have to dump it all out because it tastes like diesel fuel.
That's painful.
We did learn that lesson.
Yes. I've transitioned myself to the point where it feels good to dump barrels.
Sure.
Because I know it's a good decision. So just knowing, we decided to put that down the drain instead of serving it to people or putting it into a blend and only, only use the best barrels.
I bet that's harder to do as a young brewery when you're first trying to get stuff going. You're like, man, I really want to get beer out there, but quality. Got to keep the quality up, right?
Always, with the barrel-aged stuff, I would tell myself, this barrel might get better.
Right.
So didn't have to commit to dumping it 1 year in. Some of these barrels didn't dump till 3+ years in.
You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, Jason.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's a good story. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more stouts with Jason Pellett of Orpheus Brewing.
As a brewery owner or taproom manager, are you looking for ways to enhance your customer experience while maximizing your revenues? Craft Cellar is a mobile solution that helps your brewery drive sales and attract new customers through online pre-sales for beer releases, events, and memberships. Get details now at craftcellar.com. Mention Beer Guys Radio after sign up and extend your free trial to a full 30 days. Remember, craftcellar.com, craftcellr.com.
Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at
ResTech.net.
That's RES-TEK.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah. Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Boy, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand fast.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons can get some cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now more from Jason Pellett and the Stouts of Summer.
Brad, I want to throw in real quick. We just revamped our Patreon page quite a bit.
We did.
We added several perks, several tiers, and one thing we've done is we've added weekly mini episodes. So we don't always get to talk about everything we want to on the air. So every week our Patreon supporters can get little mini episodes, and the latest one is called This Beer Right Here. where we drank Highland Slow Crush Tart Spritz Ale, talk about the style, talk about the beer. We have some other cool stuff coming up. So if you have never visited our Patreon page, please check us out at patreon.com/beerguys.
That sounds fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Yes.
It's very, very awesome. Everybody wins, Brian.
So
Everybody wins.
Yes, they do. And so we just opened up yet another stout from Orpheus, Tim.
We did. We have got the Dark Everlasting here. And Jason, this is one of your anniversary beers, correct?
Yes, it is.
And I am looking at the label, and it says it is an Imperial Stout aged 14 to 39 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big range there in bourbon barrels. And this is the one that you did the black coconut and vanilla in. So
that's right.
I think we brushed on it. What exactly is black coconut?
So black coconut, it's inspired by black garlic, the process of that. Just a very long cooking process and controlled humidity, high humidity. And so for this, we got a few 100 pounds of coconuts, massive bakery proving cabinet, vacuum sealed the coconuts, cooked them at about 135 degrees in high humidity for 5 weeks.
5 weeks, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got an Instant Pot at home, and I've seen that they say you can kind of speed up the black garlic process in a pressure cooker. I've never tried it, but I've heard that that is something that people do.
I want you to try that because I've never had black garlic, and until like now, I had no idea that was a thing.
For you, Brian, I'm going to make some black garlic.
All
I'll
right.
report back. We'll get this taken care of.
I am ready to go with that. So how did you know that the coconut was ready? Or were you just like, well, we got to go with it now?
So I actually did a few trials at my house before we got the big proving cabinet. And so I did trials up to the longest one was about 2 months. And so, you know, through the trials, I actually figured out where the aromatic peak was. And so when we did it large scale, just, you know, smelled it regularly until it was where at that peak.
So the smell test. Okay.
The smell test.
Exactly.
Did I hear, Jason, did I hear you say that the flesh actually gets kind of custardy at that?
It smells custardy.
Okay,
it tastes
gotcha.
custardy. It I actually, you know, you go into these things not really knowing what's going to happen. I thought because we left the water in the coconuts, and we actually did another beer at the end with the water. But with the water left in there and the flesh and cooked for so long, I thought it might actually get a little more pasty. But it stayed separate flesh and water.
Okay,
just
interesting
but
stuff.
but the flesh was fairly soft.
Now, I'm going to say new-ish category of stouts is what they are calling the pastry stouts. And the term, I believe, was coined by the blogger Don't Drink Beer, the first one to call them a pastry stout. And I'm still unclear on exactly when you cross just a stout with some adjuncts into pastry territory. Would you consider this a pastry stout?
I think most of our beers stay on the non-pastry side just because of the like you can have our base stout isn't like a pastry base. It's got smoke and leather and just a lot of those kinds of layers that take it away from just pure fudge brownie, which is good too. But I like all the other stuff in there.
Is that the kind of delineation point between just like an adjunct stout and a pastry stout?
For me, I think, and you know, people, you know, our stouts are like by the numbers very similar to what people talk about as pastry stouts. But they don't really drink the same and don't really get categorized the same.
Okay. Like I've got a can of Southern Tier's S'mores Stout Nitro, and I'm thinking we're in pastry territory there.
I would think so. I think when you start, I always think of pastry, like if you start adding maple syrup to a thing, vanilla is on the cusp because vanilla doesn't necessarily have to be, but it kind of seems like you have vanilla plus something beyond it. You like the marshmallow or whatever, that sort of fluff.
You start adding marshmallow and all of
throwing
this stuff.
a cake in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely
I think
that's
like if your goal is a pastry, which is the thing now, like make your beer taste like a dessert. That's basically a pastry stout.
Some of them are absolute train wrecks, and some are delicious. For example, Angry Chair out of Tampa does an Imperial German chocolate cupcake stout that is just phenomenal. It hits every single one of the points of the flavor of German chocolate cake, but none of it is cloying or overdone. You know, when you execute them like that, but I've tried some that's just like, it's just a sugar bomb. You know, it's just sweetness and these additional flavors.
when it comes to Southern Tier, I always kind of categorize them in that pastry category. They really are trying to be a liquid dessert with alcohol. I think I think it's funny, this term. I think it was meant to be derogatory, and yet it was embraced, and people are like, oh, that's what that is. It's a pastry stout. Yeah, we're cool with that. It's like, no, it's meant to be an insult. Be insulted. Like, people like that.
Southern Tier's creme brulee.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a liquid dessert.
Yeah,
it's just
caramel
sweet
and
stuff.
just, yeah, exactly.
So, Jason, let's talk a little more about just barrel aging in general. That's a big popular category of stouts. Everything from, I've seen them take the foreign export stout or something like that, dry Irish, and put a little barrel in it. And, of course, big, bold, THICC thick beers like this do really nice in barrels. What exactly are you looking for in barrels? Is there something that you get other than the flavors? What's the benefit of barrel aging?
So there's a few things that happen, and I think you actually have to really respect your base beer before you can figure out what to do with it in the barrel. So we're looking for, I want big flavors, and I like to age for a long time. Like some of these, for us, like a year in barrels is on the relatively short time. We've gone up to over 3 years, and but you need like lots of almost rough edges in your base beer to be able to withstand the smoothing down over time. So if you want a smoother beer in the end, like kind of calmer beer, you can't age it for too long. So it's really about what you want in the end. So for me, I want it to round out some of the edges, but also boost flavors. And so that's where all that time, and it changes the mouthfeel pretty substantially. So that's what I'm really looking for, is like that switch from that fresh beer mouthfeel to just where it starts to round everything out to silk.
I would love to see, Jason, you do a big chocolatey, thick boil stout in just a nice like Bordeaux barrel. Just chocolate red wine.
No.
That does
no,
sound,
huh?
Really?
No. Wow.
No. The thing about I've never actually used a wine barrel myself for a stout, but I put a lot of wild beers in them, and for the first 6+ months they're really awful. The wine character is just it's harsh.
Okay.
Gotcha. A lot of bad things are pulled out of the wine into the barrel, and then you put the beer in, and it goes into the beer. And so that's why I've never really cared for any wine barrel stouts.
Okay, gotcha. Jason, I would love to see this.
No. I was with you. I was definitely with you. I've had some stouts that have gone into wine barrels. I thought they developed some jammy characters or some really nice fruity notes to them.
You'd have to get really lucky with the barrels you get.
Okay, 'cause I was wondering, is it the tannins maybe from the wine? You just injecting all of the tannins from the wood plus all the tannins from the wine?
I mean, there's just a lot of things like the things about the wine that the wood smooths out. Some of it is because it basically kind of acts as a filter, and then it's still sitting there. And that can be a problem with, bourbon barrels as well.
So you've got with the wine barrels, they don't typically char the insides of those like bourbon, do they?
Toasted.
No. So you don't have that extra layer of caramelization and filtration to soften it. That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of.
And I think some of the newer white wines in that, they don't even do barrel; it's just stainless.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's even reds too. There's a lot of wines that never touch oak, or only very briefly.
I know I'd heard about the good deal with Chardonnay. Mm-hmm. That was a category that like, hey. All stainless
Chardonnays. But that's a lot of winemaking, like for Chardonnay's moved from like with the unoaked shards, they also lowered the diacetyl levels. So those big buttery shards, they wanted to not just remove the oak but the diacetyl.
Okay. Well, Jason, thanks for joining us, talking and sharing stouts. We really appreciate it. If you are in the Atlanta area, go by Orpheus Brewing. Grab some of their stouts. Look for them at your favorite store on tap. You're not going to be disappointed, as well as your other beers, IPAs, sours, all that. So check out Orpheus Brewing. All good stuff. That about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Coming up next week, we will be talking with Boulevard Brewmaster Stephen Powells. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.
The Beer Guys Radio Show on the Beer Guys Radio Network. BeerGuysRadio.com.